been blessed by hearing Srila Prabhupada chant Jai Radha Madhava. So is that it, or do we just go straight into the class now, or how would you like it?
Yes, some just go straight into the class. Others also chant the Jai Radha Madhava even after Srila Prabhupada has chanted. So if you choose to chant the Jai Radha Madhava, you may do that. Otherwise, we'll put the verse on the screen and then you may begin.
Well, we could do that if you wish.
Yes.
Whilst we're waiting, at least on the
Yeah.
next
So
one.
you may go ahead. All
Okay.
right.
Hare Krishna. So everyone else should, I guess, mute while this is on, isn't it? If there is
Yes.
if there is
Yes.
anyone else on.
We try to mute the voice so it doesn't create
Yeah, otherwise you get
that echo.
the
Yes.
back kind of sound. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Gopikanava Girivardhari Gopi Janabala Yasodanandana Rajajanarandana Yasodanandana Rajajanarandana Yasodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanacharina Yamunatira Vanacharina Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Go Premanandi Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Stata Sarishta A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Shri Shri Gaunitai ki Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki Jai Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Gauda Premanandi. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glorious to Sri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Okay. Sahadev Prabhu. Can you hear me?
Yes, Maharaj, we can hear you clearly.
Before we have first of all, I'd like to thank you and your Sangha of devotees for inviting us today, and we offer our humble obeisances to all of you. And at the moment, we're situated here in France. Some of the devotees are in different parts of the world, I believe.
Yes, Maharaj.
Perhaps we can kind of briefly give an idea where everybody is situated. Are they in America or Africa or where?
Yeah, so let me do this, Maharaj, so I can see who is here. I am in the US. Gol Prabhu is
Italy.
in the UK.
UK, okay.
Sunita is in the US. Shriman Varaha Acharya is in Togo, that is West Africa.
Hare Krishna.
Salika Prabhu is in Nigeria, West Africa. Loka Devi is in the US. Yashoda Devi is in the US. Nitecharan, where are you? Where are you at?
Portugal.
Oh, Portugal, Lisbon.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. Maharaj, we believe other devotees will be joining shortly from different parts of the globe. That's our Sangha.
Good. Well, wherever you're from, we're fortunate to be with you for a few minutes, and we hope forever. But with our present consciousness, we are still under the influence of time. So the other question is, I believe we are not so limited to 1 hour. Is that correct or not?
No, we're not limited to 1 hour. No, Maharaj.
Unless Krishna has another plan.
Yes.
Plan, so.
Yes.
So thank you very much again. And
thank you so much, Maharaj.
We will, anything else I should know?
Not really. No.
Okay. I don't know anything, so we'll
it's just like a temple room setting.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah.
Okay, got it. So we'll begin then.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivasesha Sanyavadi Pastuchardi Shatai Om Gyana Timrandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshul Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvenu Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Lapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Vadhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Panamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyevicha Patitanam Bhavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jalam Mudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost or topmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Please bear with me. I'd just like to recite one or two of them, a few of them. My favorite verses, invocation verses at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is nothing but a compilation of favorite verses. From beginning to end, Srimad Bhagavatam is directed towards one point, to bring us to the point of being eligible to actually glorify the personality of God. So we have a little time on our hands, so we'll chant one or two verses. If anyone wants to or has the ability to, you could possibly put them on the vision for everyone else. It may be possible. This is the first canto, chapter 1, text number 2. Dharma Pojita Kutavatra Podamon Matsaranam Satam Vedam Vastapanata Vastashivatam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Kate King Vapararishwaram Sadhyo Viharujatetra Kritibi Shushubhistakshanat. Well, you got the last line there, you can see it. To the translation we do go. This is the second verse of spoken Vyasadev's Srimad Bhagavatam, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavat Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality, distinguished from illusion, for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. One of the reasons I chose this verse is because, yes, we're chanting it as an invocation, but it is very related, we could say, to the subject matter which you're presently discussing in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. That will come later. We'll move on to another invocation verse which I'd like to read. This is in the chapter. It's text number 40.
Maharaj, can you please repeat the verse?
Yeah, 1, 2, excuse me, 1, 3. I made a mistake. 1, 3, 40.
Okay.
1, 3, 40. You found it?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. Very good. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttamashloka Chakara Bhagavan Rishihi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Danyang Svasthaya Namaha. The Srimad Bhagavatam, this Srimad Bhagavatam, is the literary incarnation of God. And it is compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people, and it is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Then another verse, just a little later, in that same chapter 3, text number 43, which is a very famous verse. Krishne Svadamo Bhagate Dharma Jnana Divisaha Kalonashtadvisham Mesha Purana Kodunodita. Many times we would actually quote this verse when on Sankirtan, trying to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam on the street. Many times devotees would quote this verse to the public. It's very powerful. This Bhagavat Purana is as brilliant as the sun. And it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. It's easy to understand how and why Srila Prabhupada emphasized so much the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam in this age of darkness. Because this Bhagavatam, yes, the holy name has appeared to awaken us all. But at the same time, there has to be understanding. There has to be understanding who is Krishna, who are we, what is reality distinguished from illusion, what is the sum and bonum, what is the cause of all causes. In this world today where science has become inseparably penetrating all spheres of life, even the religious sphere, the social sphere, the emotional sphere, practically every level of society, facilitating unending, growth of varieties of sense gratification. Srimad Bhagavatam stands practically alone amongst all scriptures to counter the disease condition of this age. It's almost like a cancer situation. This is the only remedy. We'll read maybe one more verse. Let's see. And this verse also very much quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Very dear to Srila Prabhupada. This is the first canto, chapter 5. It's text number 11. 1, 5, 11. Somebody like to come there. It's in Narada's instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abhadavat dapi namanyanantasya yasankitani yat shrinvanti gayanti vinanti sarvaham. Prabhupada referred this even to his own endeavors, his own offering of his translation and commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, just in one sense of one of the verses he quoted quite often to qualify his translation. On the other hand, Prabhupada writes, Sutta Goswami, or Narada Muni in this case, has described already the situation of literatures which are directed towards mundane sense gratification or to economic development, even towards mundane religiosity, etc., which is generally the subject matter of people in general. They are very attracted to such literatures, and they're not so attracted towards transcendental literature. Spiritual literatures, it's like a different language for most people. Srila Prabhupada's bringing this light into this darkness of ignorance that people are in a way that somehow or another they're able, a little switch can be turned on. His commentaries, the example set obviously by Srila Prabhupada and his followers, helps to bring a little bit of inclination in people's hearts towards finding out, what is this all about? What is this strange subject matter? Very rare in this world. And even sometimes people take advantage of this, especially people who have mundane mentality. They take advantage of these transcendental literatures, not so much the philosophical side, but the Leela side. So mundane people often equate transcendental Leelas of Krishna with those of this material world. The materialistic people, they are sometimes attracted in that way, but this is an offensive perversion of the real essence of the Bhagavatam. And they will get no benefit any more than someone licking the bottle of honey will get any benefit by licking the bottle. They're not capable, eligible to enter into the subject matter. Neither are the audience actually eligible to hear it. So, therefore, we see in the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's essential that we go through it in the right way in order to actually have the right understanding, Sambandha-gyan, the right understanding to enter in. Of course, within the first 9 cantos, also Abhideya is also intertwined necessarily to practice based upon the knowledge to bring about the eligibility to actually enter into the. We can hear it in the course of our reading, but we cannot necessarily delve into it. We should hear about it. We should know what the goal is. So in the 3rd canto, which we're going to be reading now, a few moments, we are going to be hearing, now it's very interesting how we hear there are 10 subjects in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes they're accredited to the various cantos, and sometimes they're not. Jiva Goswami infers quite clearly in the Tattva Sandarbha that these 10 subject matters are not necessarily related one by one to each canto, but they are to be found in each canto. The Srila Prabhupada gives a title to each canto. If we look in the 3rd canto, the one which we're reading today, which goes to begin, I can't remember off the top of my head. It's called the Status Quo. the status quo. And in other places, Prabhupada gives it a different title. In 1965, I think, or 66, Prabhupada was lecturing. He gave a lecture at the Tagore Society in New York. And he gave it a different title. Maybe we'll mention that later on. But whatever it may be, here's the list here. Thank you for that. And they relate to various Sanskrit terms, which I don't have on the top of my head. But that doesn't matter. So we're going to be reading today from the third canto. But they all lead up, if you see down there on the 10th canto. Well, that's the question. Never mind. We're going now to text number 3 of the third canto, chapter 8. Is that right? 3, 8, 3? Is that correct?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay, here we go. I just keep finding the Bhagavatam. Here it is. So we're going to be reading. Do you read together or should I just read it through?
Whichever way you want us to do it, some just read through, and others also ask devotees to
I think we'll read it
along.
through, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Quite a lot of verses, and then they're fairly long verses. So there are 3 verses which we've been requested to read, and if any inspiration or direction comes, we'll try to follow up on it. We did a little bit of preparation, but not very deep, I'm afraid, for various reasons. We apologize for the lack of eligibility to go deeply into the subject matter. But maybe together we can ourselves churn. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be churned. When we get milk, and if we want to get cream, that may be already there. The Bhagavatam is already there in the Vedas, although only by the grace we could say of Vyasadeva and Narada Muni that they presented the cream of the Vedas in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have the cream, but we want to churn that cream so it turns into soft butter and golden ghee. So you have to churn it. You churn the butter, you churn the cream, churn, churn, churn. It turns into butter. And you churn, churn, churn again, and you may get, eventually we'll get ghee. This is all by the mercy of the pure devotees. They give us the process to churn. And one of the essential features, Satam Pasangam, you can read this nice verse also in the third canto, the teachings of Lord Kapila Deva. Satam Pasangam Mamavirya Sangvidam Bhavanti Vidkarna Rasayana Kataham. How the Srimad Bhagavatam is to be heard in the association of devotees. And we try to hear it attentively. It's by attentive hearing that Krishna reveals himself to us. He's not obligated, but this is normally the process. When we pay attention to him, he pays attention to us. So attentively hearing that message of Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees of the Lord brings great pleasure to the ear and the heart. Satisfaction. We have to get this satisfaction. It's not just a literary exercise. It's not just a memory exercise. It's not just a show. This is actually a reality. It's the means of associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We certainly have to play our part. So let's read these verses. Text number 3. Asinam urvyam bhagavantam adnyam sankarshanam devam akunta sattvam vivitsavas tattvam matapparasya kumaramukya munayom pripichan. And the translation to this verse. This verse is spoken by Maitreya Muni. In the previous chapter, we see Vidura is asking questions of Maitreya. we won't get into any attempt to historically analyze this, but this third canto, the first part at least, is primarily a question or discussion between Maitreya Muni, the speaker, and Vidur, the inquirer or the hearer. And the translation goes, some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sanat Kumar, the chief of the boy saints, these amongst the four Kumaras, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you about the truth regarding Sudeva, the Supreme, from Lord Sankarshan, who was seated in the bottom of the universe. Haribol. There's this a repetitive theme, isn't it, throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam? Inquiry and then referral to previous inquiries from time immemorial. The absolute truth is not something which appeared as in terms of its existence. Sometimes it's revealed in different time, places, and circumstance, sometimes to different extent even. But it's always there. Srimad Bhagavatam is eternal. It may not always be manifested. It may sometimes appear lost, but it's always there. The pure devotees bring it into the light, as Narada Muni requested Vyasadeva to do so. And this is not a new history. It's not that the Srimad Bhagavatam did not exist before Srila Vyasadeva compiled it, of course. It existed eternally. It's not limited either to, as we all probably know, it's not limited to the pages or the 18,000 verses of 12 cantos. It is unlimited. Unlimited. So, similarly, the questions and answers there, maybe different persons are asking the questions, maybe there's some slight difference there, according to time, place, and personal circumstance. But the subject matter or the essence, distinguishing reality from illusion, establishing the actual reality, the samambhava, is the same in every case. The whole Bhagavatam is aimed at that subject matter. How to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the translation we just, did we read? We didn't read. Let's read. Yes, we did. The purport. The purport of this verse. This is in clarification of the statement that the Lord spoke directly on the Srimad Bhagavatam regarding Vasudeva. The Lord spoke as Vasudeva, like about the truth regarding Vasudeva. The Supreme Lord, Lord Shankarshan, was seated at the bottom of the universe. So the Lord spoke it. When and unto whom the Bhagavatam was spoken is explained here with questions similar to those put forward by Vidura were asked by great sages like Sanat Kumar and Lord Sankarshan. The plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva answered them. So originally, of course, everything comes from Krishna. He spoke it, and then it's heard and passed on. Next verse. From eva jishnyan bahumanayantam yad vasudevabidam atmananti padyad pishtaka shambuja koshanishad vanmilayantam vilbudodayaya. At that time, Lord Sankarshan was meditating upon his Supreme Lord, whom he learned, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva. But for the sake of the advancement of the great learned sages, he slightly opened his lotus-like eyes and began to speak. Next verse. Spadun yudar trai svajatakalapai Upasvishantas charanopadhanam padmam The sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges. And therefore, the hair on their heads was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the serpent king when they desire good husbands. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Ganges water flows directly from the lotus feet of Vishnu, and its course runs from the highest planet of the universe down to the lowest. The sages came down from Satyaloka by taking advantage of the flowing water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. Because we don't have a general experience of this, although Srila Prabhupada one time, when he was at Kumbh Mela, it must have been 77, I guess, maybe 71, he was there twice.
Well, Hare Krishna did with his, we apologize. Please keep holding on. All right, God froze a little bit.
Oh, the devotees that there are 100 years. I'm not sure if they're meant to be there. Can you hear me? Sadev, can you hear me?
Now. We lost a bit of what you were saying, starting from Srila Prabhupada in the Kumbh Mela.
Oh. Prabhupada said that there are sages present at the Mela who are 700 years of age, and they reside in the Himalaya mountains, meditating, pretty much unseen by the general people around. And when the Mela comes, they enter into the Ganga, and they appear there in Allahabad, in Prayag. Similarly, the sages here in Satyaloka. There's a Ganga, of course, Mother Mandakini in the higher planets. They enter in and they can come out, even on these lower planets, because they travel through the Ganga. It's kind of inconceivable to our experience in many ways. Although we have some kind of an example, even now. Are we there? Okay. Even now, we see that we are, perhaps you're in Africa, or perhaps you're in Portugal, or in England, or in America, or wherever you may be. And we're not in the same three-dimensional way, but it has a similar, through the ether, sound, and at least the reflection of the image passes through the ethereal element and manifests at a far distant place. maybe from other planets, who knows, sometimes. So that's possible to some degree, even by scientific endeavor, to some degree, but not quite the same. So these great sages who are actually residing in Satyaloka, the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, Satyaloka, whatever, they come down sometimes to the lowest regions for whatever reason. In this case, they're going, the Kamaras, they're inquiring from Lord Sankarshan. The sages came down from Satyaloka by taking advantage of the flowing water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another, simply by dipping in the water. The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe, and great sages travel all over the universe via this sacred river. The statement that their hair was wet indicates that it was directly moistened by the water originating from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, which we call the Ganges, of course. Whoever touches the water of the Ganges to his head surely touches the lotus feet of the Lord directly and can become free of all effects of sinful acts. If after taking a bath in the Ganges or being washed of all sins, a man guards himself against committing further sinful acts, then certainly he is delivered. But if he again takes up sinful activities, his bath in the Ganges is as good as that of the elephant, who nicely takes his bath in a river, but later spoils the whole thing by covering himself with dust on the land. There's a nice example given herein by Srila Prabhupada, and also the explanation there of the effects of taking bath in the river Ganga. We hear the similar results, maybe even more profoundly, in terms of chanting the holy name and the effects of becoming free. When it says one is immediately liberated, it doesn't mean Brahman realization or liberation. It doesn't mean we go back to Godhead directly. It means that one is freed from the reactions of one's sins. But one still has to cultivate. That's not the goal of Srimad Bhagavatam, just to become freed of sinful reactions. That may be the goal of some person. That we have to become freed of our reactions in the past and act piously in order to engage in devotional service with determination. But that's the beginning stages. You could say relieving the living entities is a little like the removal of the dirt before you can really understand Krishna consciousness. We have to be situated in a favorable situation. There's a degree of cleansing. By Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, by practical application of devotional service, the heart becomes cleansed, purified of inebrieties. Bhagavatam also, Shri Vyasadeva's Gampada Srimad Bhagavatam Anarto Pasamam Shukshad Bhakti Yogadhokshaje. He's compiled this Bhagavatam particularly because people do not know this. But by hearing the Bhagavatam, the heart can become cleansed, become purified of all the dirty coverings. As long as we're looking at the truth through these dirty coverings, we are not eligible to actually appreciate properly. It remains a relative perception, imperfect, maybe even perverted. perception of the absolute truth. We have to cleanse our means of perception, our consciousness, our mind are required to cleanse. So together with the chanting of the holy names and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, this is the general process. But as warned here, we have to be very careful. It's one thing to become freed of sinful reaction, and Prabhupada usually uses the example of certain religious practitioners who go to their place of worship regularly and beg to the Lord or to the priest, please forgive me for my sins I committed this week. And then they go out again, unfortunately, engage in knowingly in sinful activities, and again come forward and beg for forgiveness. And in this way, Prabhupada says, this is like the elephant that just rolls in the dirt again. It's not only, you could say, not particularly effective in any way, it's also offensive to the Lord. It is one of the offenses against the holy name, knowingly committing sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord. So this type of approach is not at all recommended. This is called Dharmakritava, cheating religion, which propagates this type of process. Yes, we may be covered, we may have sinful tendencies, so we should try to adopt that process, not just to become free of the reaction for those shortcomings, but to become free of the very tendency to indulge in them in the first place. So that I'd say, that we should pray for. That's not our ultimate goal either, but is a preliminary requirement. One has to be purified at this stage. Therefore, our acharyas and even Srimad Bhagavatam and the examples of many great personalities who place themselves in situations where they apparently commit sinful activities of various kinds. The anartas, the tempri, the naimittika leelas of the 10th canto, they're all related to this, to remove these coverings. We cannot enter Vrindavan. We cannot actually understand Krishna or enter into pure devotional service as long as we have these tendencies, as long as we have these desires which we're still associated with. That's why it's so important to associate with pure devotees. Now I'm going to read some things and we may discuss a little further. There are many points in these 3 verses. One could discuss the general situation of these verses in context with the chapter. One could discuss the flow of the various verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam and their relevance. One could discuss many things. One could discuss the history of the relationship between Maitreya Muni and Vidura, and what is the eligibility of Maitreya Muni, and so on. So many things could be heard, discussed. Or we could discuss directly the verses today, the inquisitiveness or the desire to hear of the 4 Kumars and the sages who are approaching Lord Sankarshan to inquire on this subject. Maitreya is referring to the same similar questions that Vidura asked were presented by Sanat Kumar to the Lord. So we could discuss that, because we'd have to do some research work, or we can just discuss the general principle of inquiring and to whom we inquire. That's a very important subject, even from the material point of view. If we want to find out the directions, which way to go, we try to go to somebody. We may not be able to, but if we see somebody like a policeman, perhaps you don't see them now, I don't know. They may not even know nowadays. But you hope to go to someone who can explain, or maybe you go online, you go on Google search or maps or something. You go to somewhere to try to find the answer. You go to who you think is an authority in the subject. You don't go to a baker and ask details about, bank account or something. You ask him about baking bread. And if you go to the florist, you don't go to the florist, say, my car's broken down. Can you fix my car for me, please? They're selling flowers. They're not fixing cars. So some degree of intelligence has to be there, the qualification of the person we approach. And even more so in spiritual life. So that's another subject. We don't have time to get into fine details. But there are principles. The first principle is sincere inquiry. Sincere inquiry, desire to know. And I'm sure every single devotee or aspiring devotee in the path of Krishna consciousness, at some point or another, the desire to inquire or the purpose for coming here was searching for answers. And we make some questions. Bhagavatam is based on this principle right from the very beginning. The sages of the sages of Naimisharanya inquired from Sutta Goswami, and he referred it, of course, to the conversation which he'd heard of the inquiries of Parikshit Maharaj from Sukadeva Goswami. But this is an eternal principle. The subject is the same, presented according to time, place, and circumstance slightly differently, according to the eligibility of the hearer, also different degrees of real revelation may be there, and so on. And this goes on throughout the course of the history. The Lord and his representatives come to answer real questions. They don't come to answer questions about the weather, politics, sense gratification of various kinds, mundane directions. In the course of interaction, sometimes these things enter in, but that's not their purpose. Their purpose is to give answers or directions to those who are not even inquiring. Most people are not inquiring about the absolute truth at all. So the period of always try to give them some opportunity where that question may eventually arise in their hearts. Sankirtan, the books themselves, prasadam, temples, so many facilities they may provide in order to try to evoke that inquiry from the conditioned soul, who otherwise is as dull as anything and is simply inquiring how to get sense gratification like an animal. Like an animal. They have no value in this, no ultimate value. Simply in their dream world, they are praying, please, my Lord, please make my dream nice. There's a slight distant trace, at least, of some faith there, but it's not properly directed. Without the proper direction, it remains within the category of material or dharma koitava, cheating religion. And unfortunately, not much direction is there. But these inquiries made here sincerely are not just on one's own account. They're for the welfare. If we look in the first canto, chapter 2, text number, I think, 5, there, right at the very beginning, Sutta Goswami is responding to the sages of Naimisharanya. Munayo saruprishtoham bhavidbir lokamangalam. That your inquiries are, I'll read the exact verse. It's difficult to remember word for word. We don't want to miss a beat. Let's see. 1, 2, 5. Here we go. O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. The devotee relates everything to Krishna, not just Rasalila, not even just the 10th canto, but everything that exists is related to Krishna. It is nothing but an expansion from Krishna, everything. So a devotee tries in this way to engage, or for the welfare of all living entities, somehow or another, connecting them or giving them a situation where they may knowingly or unknowingly become connected to Krishna. This is preaching. This is the mercy of the great devotees. And they're asking these questions for our welfare, as said here by Sutta. They are relevance of the whole world, or world's welfare. They are relevance. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. And Prabhupada describes how the question itself is so pleasing. Just the question, what to speak of the answer. Because it is related for the welfare of everyone. It's related to Krishna. That which is related to Krishna. Everything is, but people are in darkness. But the pure devotees, they bring light on the subject. Otherwise, persons in ignorance, even if they do read the subject, there's no light. What can you read if there's no light? Have you ever tried reading in the dark? It's pretty difficult. So they put light on the subject. That's their business. The subject's already there. Everything is already there. But we can't see it. Even we read the Bhagavatam, much of the time, what do we understand? What do we understand? What actually enters into a deep depth of our consciousness is in the association of devotees. So there's another verse, very akin, very similar, we could say, to the verse which I just mentioned, Munao Sada Prishtoham, in the second canto. It's the first verse, actually, after Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It's the first verse of the second canto. I'll just read the English because otherwise our time will be short. Srila Sukadeva Goswami. So Sukadeva Goswami now is answering in reply to the very famous inquiries of Maharaj Parikshit. What is the duty of a man at the time of death? What should they be thinking of? And so on and so forth. So he starts off by saying, my dear king. Oh, I've got a problem here because these boxes are blocking my page. Let me see if I can, yeah, there they go. Oh, no, they don't. Let me see if I can, yeah, I hope that works. Yes, it's worked. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, my dear king, your question is glorious. The first thing is Sukadeva is glorifying the question. Wonderful question. Why? Because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. Because the answer to this question, not only if we're fortunate enough, that's why it said the speaker, the hearer, and anyone else who happens to be near will get great benefit from this. Because even if we're not eligible, if we are so fortunate to be in the presence of those eligible speaker and eligible speaker, then the effect of purification of our heart will take place, as well as an attraction towards the subject matter. This is the effect. You may have seen that. When we have this opportunity to be in the association of an elevated Vaishnava, or someone who's absorbed in a particular aspect of devotional service, we become absorbed. At least for the time being, we forget all of our material inclinations, all of our material attachments, all of our material problems. Everything kind of disappears, and we just become absorbed in the subject matter of hearing and chanting. We may not be, we're just there, but someone else is inquiring, someone else is speaking, and so on, and you become absorbed in it and attracted by it, simply by being good fortune of being there. As long as we're not, we'll hear that in a minute. An animal, someone who's animal-minded. So this is a beautiful verse. There's another, now we're going to go on a little bit. This is from the 10th canto. This is spoken by all persons, by Parikshit Maharaj, actually. It's the 4th verse of the 10th canto. And before Sukadeva Goswami speaks the 10th canto, Parikshit Maharaj is very, very eager to hear. This is one of the primary characteristics of an actually sincere devotee. They're very eager to hear. We may not be so eager. Sometimes in the association of devotees, or when we do open the Bhagavatam and actually let go of other things, we may start to become a little inclined. Hopefully we do. Or in Kirtan, we may become inclined to chant and hear the holy names. So here, this verse is a very important verse, one of the most important verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam, friend, spoken by Parikshit Maharaj. Nivititashi upagiyamanat bhavoshadash trotramano viramat kutamashloka gananavadat puman virajeta vina pushugnat. Related to the eligibility of the speaker and the eligibility of the hearer, this verse goes like this. 10.1.4. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? And that's a butcher. Butchers are killing others in this world. But in relationship to this verse, it is those persons. And modern day, without discrediting anyone specifically, but in principle, modern day education, science, and etc., practically is like this. It is denying the existence of the self. And unfortunately, in roundabout ways, that also enters into so-called religion in many cases. Lack of understanding of the true nature of the self, which results in the very activity of what we call in general society of butchery or killing of other living entities. But actually everyone's killing themselves in the sense they're denying their own existence. And they're certainly not doing anything to awaken the nature or the life of the soul, that's for sure. We'll read a little bit of the verse, purport rather. The verse indicates, however, this is the purport, some of it. You have difficulty following because I just selected a few parts of it. This verse indicates, however, that such recitation of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam must be done by persons completely freed from material desires. Nivritatashir, that means they have no more interest in this affection for this material world. We're all entangled in material affection. Everyone in this material world, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, is full of material desires for sense enjoyment. And everyone is busy in sense gratification, but when thus engaged, one cannot fully understand the value of Krishna Katha, either in the form of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. If we hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from liberated persons, this hearing will certainly free us from the bondage of material activity. If we hear from people who are still materially attached, it won't have that effect. Because they're materially attached. Their presentation is tinted. It is not pure. It has a different agenda, a different interpretation, a different objective, and so on and so forth. We must hear from Nivritatashya, those who are actually freed of this material covering, those who are actually in a liberated condition themselves, free of the bondage of material activity. A devotee is one who has no other motive for reciting Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam other than to serve the Lord. Excuse me, lost the page there. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore advised us to hear the glories of the Lord from a realized person. Yaha Bhagavatat Pada Vaishnavadastani. Unless one is personally a realized soul in the science of Krishna consciousness, a neophyte should not approach him to hear about the Lord, for this is strictly forbidden by Srila Sanatana Goswami. Verse which means, therefore this verse warns that Krishna Katha should be recited by a person who is Nivritat Krishna. Shukadeva Goswami epitomizes the proper reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam And Parikshit Maharaj, who purposely left his kingdom and family prior to meeting death, epitomizes the person fit to hear it. A qualified reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam gives the right medicine, Bhavoshadi, for the condition solved. This is like if you go to the pharmacy, you expect the pharmacist to know what they're doing. But if it's an ordinary person behind the counter, perhaps he works in the, I don't know, in the butcher's shop behind the counter, he won't have a clue what to do. He has to be a qualified pharmacist to know what medicines to give to the customer. And with the right medicine, then the disease can be cured. So we have to hear the right medicine, but it has to be given by the right person, not authorized. Anyone can set up a table outside their house, medicines available here. Fools may think that, medicine, good. You can glorify it, put a label on it. But will that work? Not likely. The Krishna consciousness movement, Prabhupada says, is therefore trying to train, important point, isn't it? Trying to train qualified preachers to recite Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita throughout the entire world. Sometimes we forget this. We think the idea is just to establish outposts and, get people coming and do things. That's the facility, which is meant to provide a facility whereby Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita can be spoken, presented, or lived by, so that people in general in all parts of the world may take advantage of this movement and thus be relieved of the threefold miseries of material existence. So there's a lot in that particular purport about hearing from the right person, being eligible to hear, the right mood for hearing, the effects of such hearing, the purpose of our Krishna consciousness movement. So many things are mentioned. The sages are not just getting together in Naimisharanya for their own purpose. And the Kumaras are not just inquiring from Lord Shankarshan for their own purpose only, but for the welfare of all living entities. So that everyone can get there. The Ganges doesn't enter into this world for its own. The Lord in this form, as a form of the Lord in one sense, he appears in this world in the form of water as the Ganga, for the sake of the benefit of everyone in the universe, to give everyone a chance to become eligible to hear Krishna Katha. And we'll go on a little bit now, and at this point, I'm afraid I haven't got much method. Maybe it'll just happen like that, but I haven't got a systematic system. We're going to talk a little bit about the purifying effects of we've already heard a little bit about association, the importance of that, and similarly the association of the Ganga. It's definitely mentioned quite strongly in the third, in verse number 5 of today's 3 verses. So it behooves us to talk something, which is probably the other main or most prominent point of these 3 verses, the effect of River Ganga or associating with Mother Ganga. I remember one time, it's actually there, I have the statement somewhere, it's a quotation, and it's from, oh my goodness, I've forgotten, but it's one of the scriptures which states, any river on this planet where a thirsty cow has drunk takes on the very nature of Mother Ganga. So all rivers, in one sense, have some beneficial effect. Now, we're not going to get into the details of that, but the principle is the purifying effect, Mother Cow also, of the cow, but of the purifying effect of Mother Ganga. A society where cows are protected, a society where the environment is protected, is a more favorable environment for the awakening of Krishna consciousness. It doesn't cause it in of itself, but it provides a more favorable foundation or facility, a backdrop in which to see Krishna's presence becomes more opportunities there. for those who are presenting. So here's a lovely verse. It's from the first canto. It's chapter 19, text number 6. The river Ganges, by which the king sat to fast. So this is perhaps the last chapter of the first canto. I don't know, but probably. Where Maharaj Parikshit has come to the banks of the river Ganges or the Yamuna. There's, let's say, a little bit of discussion involved there by the sages as to exactly where it was. But wherever it was, the Ganges, Yamuna are one and the same in many ways. So Parikshit Maharaj sat down there, Jiva Goswami says it, on the banks of Jamuna. And there he sat, awaiting death. Of course, the history unfolds. Probably you're familiar with that history of how eventually Sukadeva Goswami appeared on the spot. So the river carries the most auspicious water, which is mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord and tulsi leaves. There are two ways of looking at it. This holy Ganges enters into the universe from the lotus feet of the Lord, or it's touching the lotus feet of the Lord Vamanadev, who pierced the universe with the toe of his lotus feet. So it enters into the universe in that way. It also infers the Jamuna, river Jamuna, where Krishna personally performs his pastimes. So either way, it's perfectly okay. Therefore, that water sanctifies the three worlds inside and out, and even sanctifies Lord Shiva and other demigods. Consequently, everyone who is destined to die must take shelter of this river. And everyone is destined to die. There's more to it, much more, which we've tried to share. But there's a very nice verse, and I didn't pick it up. I think it's in the fourth canto. I'm not sure. But Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport how the words of a pure devotee of the Lord, that the verse discusses this too, they may, from the material point of view, may not sound so sweet. They may not sound so eloquent or even literally correct. But because those words emanated from the lotus feet of the Lord, because the pure devotees are situated at the Lord's lotus feet, their words are considered to be coming, and therefore they carry the saffron dust of the Lord's lotus feet. And anyone who hears those words becomes purified. They become unlimitedly benefited hearing the words of a pure devotee. No matter what their relationship is, there's an amazing effect of having that opportunity to hear those words, because they've come from the Lord's lotus feet. There's a verse in the third canto, the canto we're on, and this is again, well, I can't remember the Sanskrit, I'm not going to read it, but the English goes like this. It is one of my favorite verses in some ways. The blessed Lord Shiva, this is third canto, chapter 28, text number 22, and it's describing Lord Shiva. The blessed Lord Shiva becomes all the more blessed by bearing on his head the holy water of the Ganges, which has its source in the water that washed the Lord's lotus feet, that we've heard just now. But Lord Shiva means auspicious. He becomes even more auspicious by taking that water. And then, I don't know exactly who, this is Lord Kapila Dev, probably. This is the 28th chapter, so these are the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. The Lord's feet act like thunderbolts, hurled to shatter the mountain of sin stored in the mind of the meditating devotee. There's a mountain of sin, and I guess many of us will testify to that we do have like a mountain of sin in our minds. We may not like it, but it just sort of is there, stored away. And we're trying to meditate on the holy name, or trying to do something focus on Krishna somehow or another, but this mountain of the sin keeps coming in. So the Lord's feet act like thunderbolts hurled to shatter the mountain of sin stored in the mind of the meditating devotee. One should therefore meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for a long time. Wow, that's not easy. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada, again, I'm taking a few points here. Lord Shiva is important because he is holding on his head the holy Ganges water, which has its origin in the foot wash of Lord Vishnu, Charanamrita. So we take Charanamrita regularly, the foot wash of the Lord. Another significant point of this verse is that the mind of the conditioned soul, on account of its association with the material energy from time immemorial, contains heaps of dirt in the form of desires to lord it over mature nature. And back to the point Prabhupada is mentioning, it's one thing to get freed of the sinful reactions, it's another thing to get freed of the desire. And this is desire, by the way, is a karmic reaction. It's not constitutional to have a material desire. It's constitutional to desire, but material desires are not constitutional. They are a result of many lifetimes, as Prabhupada says here, time immemorial, our association of the material energy. It creates all these various material desires, one after the next. Everything we do in relationship with the material world formulates material desires. To get rid of that is not just about a dip in the river Ganga. It's not just about, please forgive me for my sins. There is a process to become freed of the very desire itself. And that you can read 10:14:8. We're not going there. The 10th canto, 14th chapter, text 8. There are some indications there in the purport, particularly how this works. Anyway, you have to read it if you want to find out more. This dirt is like a mountain, but a mountain, do we jump over there? No. A mountain can be shattered when hit by a thunderbolt. We have to hit that mountain with a thunderbolt. Meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord acts like a thunderbolt on the mountain of dirt in the mind of the yogi. So we're devotee, but also bhakti yogi, but it's referring to any yogi here. So for a devotee, or one who's trying to practice bhakti yoga, Prabhupada describes how, somewhere, I don't have the reference, but I've got it somewhere, that the lotus feet of the Lord appear in this age of Kali in the form of the holy name. He's appeared in this way, that meditation on the lotus feet. By chanting and hearing the holy name, one is actually meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord. Well, that's pretty logical, but sometimes we forget it. It's got too simple to remember sometimes. And it has that effect. Sankirtan is like a thunderbolt which acts on this mountain of sin. It's like a thunderbolt. The more we're supposed to perform Sankirtan, this is the Sankirtan movement, I think. And we're supposed to perform Sankirtan. That means congregational chanting and hearing of the name, form, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. Particularly in this particular state we're in, the holy name. Or hearing from Bhagavatam. Because the dirt has accumulated like a solid mountain, one must meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord for quite a long time. And we see ourselves, we sometimes in Kirtan, you feel relieved, you feel uplifted, and even persons who are not devoted, engaged in devotional service, let's say, they also feel something special. But then we go about our ordinary activities, go back home, watch the television, go on social media, talking all nonsense, hearing criticisms, in lazy, whatever things we do in our, our private times, or whatever it may be called, different things which are not exactly favorable for awakening our devotion to Krishna. So that's the problem. So we have to try to increase, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, this is the the result of why after so many years of practice, we are still entangled or attached to the material energies because we're not sufficiently associated with the transcendental messages. We're still inclined to associate with the material messages, and we do it. Or the material association of various kinds. Or another angle of that we could say is hanging on to our material conditional perception of things. If we don't want things to change, it is a very slow process. The desire for change must be there in the individual, not just the process alone. That's called mechanical. It will have effect, but it will take a long time. The desire for change must be there too. Recognition that we need to change our consciousness, change our perception, which is imperfect. So all these things taken into account are required. For one who is accustomed to thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord constantly, however, it is a different matter. The devotees are so fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord that they do not think of anything else. So this is what we're supposed to be, but we may not be. And some of you may be. I hope it'd be nice if you are. I'm not, but many of you may be. We're still hanging on sometimes to past samskaras or all these conditional attachments to misidentifying ourselves with our present state of perception of how we think things are. I think like this, I feel like this, and so on. That has to be adjusted. That has to be changed. That's the meaning of a change of heart. Bhagavata is specifically mentioned. Bhagavata means of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, and no one else. Another significant phrase in this verse is Shiva Shivobhut. By his constitutional position, Lord Shiva is always great and auspicious. But since he has accepted on his head the Ganges water, which emanated from the lotus feet of the Lord, he has become even more auspicious and important. The stress is on the lotus feet of the Lord. A relationship with the lotus feet of the Lord can even enhance the importance of Lord Shiva, what to speak of other ordinary living entities. You can take these in many ways. We can also introduce deity worship in our lives, which we probably already have anyway, but this also refers there. We're worshipping the Lord's lotus feet, deity worship in various ways. We're paying obeisances to the Lord. We're paying obeisances to the devotees. We're circumambulating the temple of the Lord. We're doing various activities which come under Padasevana also, worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. But the whole process of devotional service, to keep fully engaged, Prabhupada said, this is mam chayo vyabhicharana bhakti yogena sevate, to be fully engaged in devotional service, infallible, not to fall down under any circumstance. One rises to the Brahman or the spiritual platform, and that's when pure devotional service really begins. When we transcend these three modes of nature and come to the level of Brahman. So this is the process of being fully engaged in devotional service. This is the art. And of course, many of us, married, families, working, other things are there. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that whatever spare time we have, we should utilize that in relationship with Krishna. Other activities in the course of one's position in society may have to be performed, and we shouldn't be obligated to do so. We can try to see them in relationship with Krishna, but at least in our spare time, we should utilize that for nicely hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. Now we're going to go to another amazing verse, which I came across this afternoon. This is in the 84th chapter. You can guess which canto it is because no other canto has so many chapters. It's the 10th canto, 84th chapter, text number 26. And again, I'm sorry, I should have put the reference here, but it might come up in a minute. Today we have directly seen your feet, the source of the holy Ganges, which washes away volumes of sins. Perfected yogis can at best meditate upon your feet within their hearts, but only those who render you wholehearted devotional service and in this way vanquish the soul's covering, the material mind, attain you as their final destination. Therefore, kindly show mercy to us, your devotees. Beautiful verse. Vanquish the soul's covering. Only those who render you wholehearted devotional service can vanquish the soul's covering, the material mind. And then they can attain their final destination. All these cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam are so important because, are you there?
Yes, Maharaj, we're still here.
Sorry, because I'm on a different page. It suddenly occurred to me, maybe you're not there.
No, I'm still here.
I'm talking to the four walls.
Maharaj, we're still rapt attentive.
Rapt attention. Okay, good. Then you'll see Krishna on the pages of the Bhagavatam. Great. So, yes, we'll carry on. So that amazing verse, huh? And they're begging for that. Please show your mercy to us. They're begging for that. They're begging the Lord. 10:84:26. Amazing verse. I'm going to look it up later on today. In the purport, not Prabhupada, but Prabhupada's empowered representatives, the holy river Ganges has the power to destroy all sorts of sinful reactions because she originates at the Lord's lotus feet and thus contains the dust of his feet. Explaining this verse, Srila Sridhar Swami says, if the Lord might advise the sages that they need not concern themselves with devotional practices because they are already far advanced in spiritual knowledge and austerity, they hereby respectively decline such a suggestion, pointing out that only those yogis who have destroyed their material mind and ego by surrendering to Krishna in pure devotional service can attain full perfection. Ultimately, that conditioned mind and false ego can only be rectified by this, by simply serving, taking complete shelter of the Lord. Only by his grace is that removed, by no other means. We know from Bhagavad Gita there's no other way of understanding Krishna. Even to get liberation, only Krishna can give that. They may accept, not accept, know or not know. But it's Mukunda, Krishna, who awards liberation, not Lord Shiva, not Lord Brahma. We can pray to them. They may give us the inspiration. They may put a good word in. They can do many things, no doubt. But it's Krishna who awards, even for the liberation stage. What to speak of pure devotional service, prema. If the Lord might advise, he says in far advances, they reject this idea that you're already advanced, you don't need to. No, we need to engage in pure devotional service. They conclude by praying to the Lord that he favor them in the most merciful way by making them his devotees. What is the use of anything else? Everything else is short of the mark. Even if you are liberated, even if you are a great yogi, what is the use? Even if you're freed of your sinful reactions, it's not just about becoming freed of the material contamination, which is you could say, a necessary, in most cases, prerequisite to practicing even devotional service. But that's not the goal by any means. Four regulated principles and so on are only there to facilitate this, as we heard earlier, to provide a background, a circumstance which is favorable for the impregnation of the transcendental sound vibration of Krishna Kirtan. Very hard to know how hard it is to plant a seed in rock. Nothing's impossible, but it's very difficult. The soil has to be softened to put that seed in, to cultivate that seed. So all these environmental needs are there in society, whether it's varnashram or whatever. Different systems may be there to try to create a more mode of goodness environment, practice in life of more piety and so on. All these things may be there as prerequisites or preface to the actual subject matter itself of Krishna Katha. And that is what is really the essence of devotional service. Not just to become freed of sinful reactions, not to gain liberation, and certainly not to attain material elevation for sure, but to actually develop this unflinching, infallible attraction to hearing and chanting about Krishna. And we have another nice verse here, also in the 10th canto. There's a last verse, and one of the last verses of the Bhagavatam, so it's chapter 90, text number 48, 10, 90, 48. The heavenly Ganges is a holy place of pilgrimage because her waters wash Lord Krishna's feet. Not because they're water, but because they wash the Lord's lotus feet. But when the Lord descended among the Yadus, his glories eclipsed the Ganges as a holy place. Now we're moving up. Both those who hated Krishna and those who loved him attained eternal forms like his in the spiritual world. The unattainable and supremely self-satisfied goddess of fortune, for the sake of whose favor everyone else struggles, belongs to him only. His name destroys all inauspiciousness when heard or chanted. He alone has set forth the principles of the various disciplic successions of sages. What wonder is it that he, whose personal weapon is the wheel of time, relieved the burden of the earth? Purport. From beginning to end, the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam has been exclusively dedicated to reciting the pastimes of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka. 10th canto specifically. The other 9th cantos are also glorifying the Lord and again pointing to the ultimate summum bonum, but one by one bringing us to the point of actual qualification or eligibility to enter into the subject matter of Krishna Katha. As Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out, this verse sums up the 10th canto by mentioning 5 special glories of Sri Krishna that even his expansions, plenary portions, and incarnations do not display. So here they are. First, Lord Krishna's reputation eclipsed that of the holy Ganges when he descended into the Yadu dynasty. Previous to this, Mother Ganges was the most sacred of all tirthas, being the water that had bathed Lord Vamana's lotus feet. Another river, the Yamuna, became even greater than the Ganges by contacting the dust from Sri Krishna's feet in the district of Braj and Mathura. The renowned, this is from the Varaha Purana, the renowned Yamuna is my domain of Mathura, is hundreds of times greater than the Ganges. About this there could be no dispute, O goddess. Second, Lord Krishna gave liberation not only to his surrendered devotees, but also to those who consider themselves his enemies. Devotees like the coward girls of Raj and others attained his personal association by entering into his eternal pleasure pastimes in the spiritual world, while inimical demons killed by him attained Sayugya Mukti, or merging into his divine form. When he was present on this earth, Lord Krishna's compassion extended to his family, friends, and servants, and also to his enemies and their families, friends, and servants. Great authorities like Lord Brahma have mentioned this fact. Sadvishad eva puttana pisakulatvam eva devapita. My Lord, you have already given yourself to Putana and her family members simply because she dressed herself as a devotee. Third, Goddess Lakshmi, Lord Narayan's constant companion, whom great demigods serve menially to win her slight favor, was unable to win the privilege of joining the intimate company of Lord Krishna's devotees in Braj. Despite her eagerness to participate in the Rasa dance and other pastimes enacted by Krishna, and despite the severe austerities she underwent to achieve that end, she could not transcend her natural mood of reverence. So there's another barrier in Krishna consciousness, which we should have in one sense. Prabhupada said we worship the deities like Lakshmi Narayan right now, but at the same time, that's not our objective. That's not the objective of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, is to bring us to the point of Madhurya, of loving Krishna in Madhurya, not in Aishwarya. That may be the case for most devotees, not most devotees in other paramparas or other religions or whatever it may be. But it's not the intention of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's to give everyone the opportunity to bring the most pleasure to Krishna, the highest pleasure to Krishna in Madhurya Rasa of one kind or another. So this reverential approach should be there in the beginning, but that's not our objective either. It's not that one should stay at that level forevermore. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. We hope we can go further by the grace of Guru and Gauranga. So let's see, where do we get to? Yes, as Shri, the sweetness and intimacy Lord Krishna manifested in Vrindavan constitute a unique kind of opulence found nowhere else, not even in Vaikuntha. As Sri Uddhava says, to exhibit the strength of his spiritual potency, Lord Krishna manifested a form just suitable for his human-like pastimes in the material world. This form was wonderful even for him, and was the supreme abode of the wealth of good fortune. Its limbs were so beautiful that they increased the beauty of the ornaments worn on different parts of his body. That's a verse from the 3rd canto, believe it or not. So this subject comes up, indications of the Samambona, the ultimate goal of everything, come up from time to time throughout the Bhagavatam. Everything's directed towards it, but directly, indirectly it's bringing us there, but directly comes up here and there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, as this verse, 3rd canto, chapter 2, text 12 says. Beautiful description of Lord's appearance. 4th, the name is superior to the name Narayan and to those of all of Lord Krishna's other expansions. These two syllables, Krish and Na, combine together to destroy all inauspiciousness and illusion. When recited, the name Krishna becomes Shrutamata. That is to say, the recitation of Krishna's name totally crushes Matnati, the excellence of all other spiritual practices described in the revealed scriptures. In the words of the Brahmanda Purana, I'll just read the English translation. By uttering the single name of Krishna just once, one attains the same benefit as that gained by reciting Lord Vishnu's 1,000 names 3 times. So powerful, the name Krishna, the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. 5th, Lord Krishna solidly reinstated Dharma, the bull of religion, on its 4 legs of compassion, austerity, cleanliness, and truth. And truth. Thus, Dharma could once again become Gotra, the protector of the earth. Sri Krishna also established the religious function of Govardhan Puja to honor his favorite hill, the cows and the Brahmins. He also became the hill, Gotra himself, assuming its form to accept the cowherds' offerings. Moreover, he cultivated the Dharma, or loving nature, of Braja's divine cowherds, Gotras, whose love for him has never been equaled. These are just a few of the wonderful features of Lord Krishna's unique personality. And this is, as we hear in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 6th verse of the 1st canto, 2nd chapter, Savaipong Sang Paro Dharmo, Hito Bhatir Dhokshade, Hoitiki Apatiyata, Yayatma Supasidati. This highest Dharma is not about some temporary Naimittika Dharma, which is required as a foundation. We don't live in foundations. They're to facilitate the building. The actual building is the awakening or the attraction or attachment to hearing, chanting, and remembering the holy name, pastimes, qualities, and form of the personality of Godhead. So this is by the mercy of the devotees who reveal Srimad Bhagavatam to us step by step by step. We start with the lotus feet, first 2 cantos, working our way slowly up the form of the Lord to the Lord's 10th canto. Yes, his face, his smiling face, the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. We don't start there, as Queen Kunti said. We start at the lotus feet, meditate there, absorb and cultivate gradually, elevating our consciousness, growing through the various cantos to the 10th canto. Let's see, we have a few more little snippets. Let's see. I don't know what the time is. I lost my watch somewhere. I had it. Oh, there it is.
6:05.
Okay, we have a few more minutes. We're going along here, but this subject matter is eternal. 1:115. O Sutta, those great sages who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord can at once sanctify those who come in touch with them, whereas the waters of the Ganges can sanctify only after prolonged use. And this is a statement by the sages of Naimisharanya, first canto, first chapter, text 15. Incredible. Purport. Pure devotees of the Lord are more powerful than the waters of the sacred Ganges. One can derive spiritual benefit out of prolonged use of the Ganges waters, but one can be sanctified at once by the mercy of a pure devotee of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that any person, regardless of birth, as Sudra, woman, or merchant, can take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and by so doing can return to Godhead. To take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord means to take shelter of the pure devotees. The pure devotees whose only business is serving the Lord are honored by the names Prabhupada and Vishnupad, which indicates such devotees to be representatives of the lotus feet of the Lord. Anyone, therefore, who takes shelter of the lotus feet of a pure devotee by accepting the pure devotee as his spiritual master can be at once purified. Such devotees of the Lord are honored equally with the Lord because they are engaged in the most confidential service of the Lord, for they deliver out of the material world the fallen souls whom the Lord wants to return home back to Godhead. Such pure devotees are better known as vice lords. Sometimes Prabhupada say they're as good as God because they're servants of gods. They're representing God in this world. And they're sprinkling that dust on everyone in the form of devotional service. This pure devotional service, you could say, is that dust at the lotus feet of the Lord, whether it's in the form of the personality or in their devotion to the Lord. They sprinkle that on everyone. The sincere disciples of a pure devotee consider him equal with the Lord, but the pure devotee always considers himself to be a humble servant of the Lord. This is pure path, the pure devotional path. And I think we'll finish off with a couple of verses here. A few more verses, yes. These are not necessarily in order, but they're wonderful verses. This is from the 7th canto. Yes, 7th canto, 5th chapter, text 32. Where did you get this from, Prahlad Maharaj? Where have you got this from? So he describes, Naisham matisthavadurukramangrim sprishatyanartha pagamodyartha mahiyasam parvajobhishekam niskinchananam na vinitayavat. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. In this way can one be freed from material contamination. So the importance of having that good fortune of that association, taking that good fortune, taking that opportunity of a pure devotee, smearing that instructions, the mercy which they shower on us, on our very being, and trying to completely cover ourselves in devotional service. Is this possible? Even though we may be inclined towards the material world. Prabhupada writes, only one who has surrendered to a pure devotee of Krishna and taken the dust of his lotus feet can understand Krishna. First, one must understand how to get out of the clutches of Maya. The only means is to become Krishna conscious. And to become Krishna conscious very easily, one must take shelter of a realized soul, a Mahant or Mahatma, whose only interest is to engage in the service of the Lord. One must take shelter of a Niskinchana, a person engaged in devotional service and free from material contamination. That is the way to return home, back to Godhead. And in the 5th canto, when Maharaj Rahugana was inquiring from Jad Bharat, he was absolutely astonished at Jad Bharat's realized level of consciousness. And Jad Bharat spoke this famous verse, Rahuganaita tapasanayati na chejaya nirvapanad vihadva na chandasanaiva jalagni surya vinamahat padarajobhishekam. The same principles we heard from Prahlad Maharaj. My dear King Rahugana, unless one has the opportunity to smear his entire body with the dust of the lotus feet of great devotees, one cannot realize the absolute truth. One cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing celibacy or strictly following the rules and regulations of household life, nor leaving home as a vanaprastha, nor accepting sannyas, nor undergoing severe penances in winter, or keeping oneself submerged in water, or surrounding oneself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. This is the key of keys. And then in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, text 34, the prayers of Lord Brahma. My greatest possible good fortune, Lord Brahma says, will be to take any birth whatever in this forest of Gokul and have my head bathed by the dust falling from the lotus feet of any of its residents. Their entire life and soul is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Mukunda, the dust of whose lotus feet is still being searched for in the Vedic mantras. So that's the aspiration of Lord Brahma. He's not even worried. If he has to, he'll take birth somewhere near Vrindavan so that maybe sometimes the residents of Vrindavan will come and step on him as a blade of grass or a stone or something or another. He makes take birth and get the dust of their feet, which is the most important and only necessary factor. The devotees who come from the Lord's lotus feet to shower their mercy in this world. And the last line, this is the 1st canto, 8th chapter, text 3. Having greatly lamented, this is the lamentation, I think it's the Yudhisthira and the devotees of the family after the battle of Kurukshetra, having greatly lamented over them and offered Ganges water, they again bathe in the Ganges, whose water is sanctified due to being mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. So we should understand what that means. To bathe in the Ganges is not just another outing to have a dip, freed from sinful reactions. Maybe you can get that, but that's not the purpose. We're actually entering into that intimacy, the Lord's lotus, the dust of the Lord's lotus feet. We have to take that and smear it on our bodies all the time. Not in the river one day, 1 minute, out, and again back in Maya. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. We are sorry for the length of this. I didn't have any idea. It was all the last minute kind of put things together type of thing. And I'm still here. I don't know if anyone else is. I think I'm still here anyway.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Well, dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, reflections, you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji. and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your question or share your reflections.
I basically just read. I've got no realizations. I just read from here and there and commented. I don't know anything. Yes, but there might be a question. I don't know.
Yeah, as you were speaking, you very much reminded me of my Gurudev, His Holiness Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Maharaj, and His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj.
Oh my goodness.
Because
If I can remind you of them, there's some benefit in this class.
oh, Maharaj.
There's no benefit in me, but if I've reminded you of them, there's some, I might get a little drop of 1 grain of dust of mercy of some kind. I
Yeah,
pray
because
when they
Gaur
forget.
Govinda Maharaj used to say that just one word from the translation of a verse or the text, and just one Srila Prabhupada's word in the purport can take you months and months to discuss it.
Yeah,
And
it takes me a couple of seconds, but it would take them months. I can sum it up in a couple of seconds. I don't know what it means.
and I was trying to see what you're going to talk about, and thankfully you gave all the possible angles one can tackle this verse from.
To be honest, Sahadev, I think we hardly touched the surface.
Yes.
The big thing, because you open up one window and you see 1,000 others,
Yes.
It's the nature of Bhagavad Gita. It just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows bigger. And in the Asanga, the Association of Devotees, it has unending. It just goes on and on forevermore.
Yeah.
And it's very sweet.
Well, thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you.
So like I said, does anyone have something to ask or to share? One doubt, I wouldn't say doubt. I think it's a doubt. I should say it's bewilderment. That is, we always hear that Maharaj Parikshit sat at the bank of the Ganges River for the 7 days that he was cursed to die, which he accepted. And then he listened from Shukadev Goswami for all those 7 days, 7 nights. And I do not know at what point that Maharaj Parikshit now shared the content of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita to his mother. I don't think I've had an answer from anybody yet. If you may help, Maharaj.
To his mother Uttara,
Yes.
who was in distress. Well,
Of course, she was in distress that she was going to lose her son.
yeah.
But her son, Maharaj Parikshit, spoke to her the transcendental Brihad Bhagavatamrita, so beautiful. And I'm wondering at what point in time within those 7 days that he imparted this knowledge to his
It was
mother.
on Tuesday at 3:45 a.m. 3052 AD BC. In her just the room next to her bedroom. Does that answer your question? I know everything.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I'm putting aside humor. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I understand the context. I mean, we understand. I mean, I can't. I mean, I'm sure the others may be able to elucidate further on this without making further research. And even if there is some reference point, as we heard in the beginning, that Bhagavatam is eternal. It sometimes is revealed, and sometimes, in certain types and circumstances, may not be revealed. But the pure devotees of the Lord are themselves Bhagavats. And Parikshit Maharaj is himself a living Bhagavat, of course. It's not that he wasn't already a living Bhagavat, he was. But for the sake of the Lord's service, he's taking a particular position, as the Lord's eternal associates do, for various reasons. So to what element of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the essence of the Bhagavatam, we see that in the Bhagavatam, in the second canto, we see the 4 seed verses there, which were originating there, Lord Brahma's. The 4 seed verses of the Bhagavatam spoken to Lord Brahma, from which you can say the content of the Bhagavatam expands unendingly. So what degree that Parikshit Maharaj, there was a question asked one time by early days, I don't know where it was, maybe in Seattle, I think in 68 when Prabhupada was there or something like that. And one young girl, obviously a newcomer, is Joan of Arc. I'm in France, so this is a very important topic, very, very important. Is Joan of Arc mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam? You heard of Joan of Arc? She was a very famous French heroine. Prabhupada, Joan of Arc, I don't know if probably even heard of Joan of Arc or whatever, but it's like, it depends. Everything's there in the Bhagavatam in one sense, isn't it? Everything's there. But, what is relevant? The sages reveal what is relevant. The Srimad Bhagavatam is unlimited, is unending. It's related to Krishna. So everything can be related to Krishna in one sense. So the devotees reveal that which is relevant. So obviously Parikshit Maharaj revealed that same basic essence of life purely to his mother. That Bhagavat Katha he revealed to his mother. Now it's also interesting to note that, Srimad Bhagavatam is one of the Puranas. And I asked this question of Banu Maharaj one time, that it seemed like it was already present. It was there as one of the Puranas already. It's not that it was spoken for the first time in one sense by Vyasadeva, which it wasn't. But this particular, let's say, elucidation of Srimad Bhagavatam, he elucidated on it. He expanded it in a way which was relevant to Parikshit Maharaj or the sages' inquiries. In the case of Sutta, it was the sages. It's ever increasing like that. It's not like a machine. It's like a living organism. It's just ever increasing like this. So, but it's the essence of the Bhagavatam. Certain things will be repeated as is again and again, or referred to according to time, place, and circumstance. So Parikshit Maharaj would have spoken to his mother on Bhagavat Katha, which was relevant to a situation based upon the same principle of Srimad Bhagavatam. But not that he sat there for 7 days reciting exactly word by word what he heard from Shukadeva Goswami. So we get this understanding, sometimes Prabhupada said in the heavenly planets, the Srimad Bhagavatam is unlimitedly greater in terms of content than it is on this planet. It's huge. There's so much more is there. So we're only getting what was relevant to us. We can't even digest that. So as we mature in Krishna consciousness, the Bhagavatam unendingly opens up. It opens like a blossoming flower. So my understanding is he spoke whatever was relevant to her, but it's the same subject matter in principle relevant to her situation as is spoken in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't know what more I can say, really. I'll have to look it up. I do have, so I'm sure I've got a reference sometime. I may have got the time of day wrong, but I'll just check that up exactly when it was. But it was, 1 month and 3 days and 4 minutes before he went to the bank of the Ganges. I don't know. But, Bhagavatam is not chronological, as you know, and it's not necessarily tied down to our normal perception of chronology in terms of this, follows that. Sometimes it's different situations, different areas. It's the subject matter, which we all know is the emphasis. And the devotees take different roles in order to illuminate the subject matter, the conditioned souls. So sometimes it's very hard to trace the chronological factors. They don't seem to always correlate with each other. And on that point, we sometimes get hung up and captivated. This is a little test, a little trick, you could say, because we have this tendency to want to measure everything and to analyze everything. And we often then we miss the spirit. Right? We get so tied up with the external details, and we miss the actual spirit of or the purpose of it. So it is good. It's nice to understand because it absorbs us in the subject. We shouldn't be dependent upon it. We shouldn't, in the material world, you deny something because historically it doesn't fit. So that is, I see that as Krishna's special arrangement to keep atheistic or non-devotees a little distance from touching the very confidential aspect of Srimad Bhagavatam. But for devotees, we have to be understanding. There will be many things which we won't be able to understand with our puppy brains, which may be revealed in due course of time if they are significantly important. But otherwise, we worry too much. So there will be many things. I mean, how on earth do you justify Ugrasena having 33 trillion bodyguards? When Prabhupada was asked, I think it was in one conversation, maybe with Hridayananda Maharaj or somebody asked the question, how do we explain this? And Prabhupada said, you don't. So you just avoid it. You just don't go there. And you see Prabhupada many times when he would be asked questions which were kind of maybe technical or a little,
Yeah.
we're not Wikipedia or something, even Wikipedia may have the answer. Why don't you go on one of these things? Ask AI. Is it AI?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I can answer you on that one. AI is supposed to know everything, but we're not. That's not our business. Our business is love. Our business is devotion. So like that. Probably usually, when he's asked his question, he's usually talk about something else. Did you notice that? If you ever listened to his questions, many times he would just defer it to a totally different subject matter or query the person why they're asking it rather than what they're asking. Why are you asking this irrelevant subject? Or whatever it may be. And I don't see this as irrelevant, by the way. But many times Prabhupada would do that, because we're missing the point.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maharaj, because talking about the process is not like in a chronological order in terms of sharing the stories. In itself answers the question I put to you. So
Sometimes it is. I mean, I think the itihasas are more chronological, like the Mahabharata, and and those type of presentations of the subject matter. But in Puranas,
not with the Bhagavatam.
Not even with the Puranas in general. Maybe some of them have some specific chronology, and we do see chronology in the Bhagavatam when it comes to genealogical lines and various things like that. But even Krishna's pastimes are not always described in the same order. And sometimes they're not always there. Different yugas also, sometimes they're in different orders and so on and so forth. Whatever. Just chant Hare Krishna purely, and maybe eventually we'll have some realization.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Maharaj, one honest request. If we may have your association at least once in a month.
That might be a little difficult, Sadeh Prabhu. Unless you come to France. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome to come to France once a month. No problem.
Virtually.
Bring your own food. Sorry?
We'll come to France virtually.
Eventually.
No, virtually.
Virtually, okay.
Yeah.
All glorious to, what do you call it? Modern technology.
Internet.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Well, Maharaj, sincerely speaking, we appreciate.
Well, I got a few babbles online on YouTube if you want to hear some babbling. If you like the sound of babbling, I've got a few talks online here and there, I guess, on YouTube, I think.
Yeah. All right. Yes, we would love to.
I don't know if you would love to. You can find out.
We would love to.
The taste for the pudding is in the eating, so.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Well, Giridhari Puja Devi, I'm not sure she's still here, but we thank her very much for making it possible for us to have your association with all the devotees.
I wish we could have your Guru Maharaj's association. Your Diksha and Siksha Gurus.
Well,
whatever reason, Krishna knows best. He don't have, they took at least their Vapu forms, he took them away.
Yes.
What to do?
All right. It's difficult, but in a way, it's helping us in a way because Srila Prabhupada in his amazing wisdom made so many moves. So even when our father is not physically with us, his uncles and the uncles and the aunties are there. So like I said, you reminded me of my Gurudev. So we take refuge in this provision Srila Prabhupada has created for us. So thank you for being
Jai,
an
Bhai
uncle for
Srila.
us. Thank you so much.
Even if we are living in the dark moon, in the darkness of a moonless night, some or other, if we remember Srila Prabhupada, if we remember those.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Everybody who's been with us this evening, and whatever time of day it is for you, it's evening over here. It might be morning or afternoon there. I don't know what it is. But whatever it is, wherever you are, we wish you all the best. And thank you for being with us. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Thank you. Dear devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our deepest appreciation to His Holiness.
16 rounds now together.
And
It's so let's be back
the Swami Maharaj. Jai.
3 hours.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna, Hare
Hare Ram,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Panchakarpataru, Vyascha, Kripa, Sindhubhya, Sivaska, Nanda Swami Goswami Maharaj Ki.
I see many of you are driving cars.
Swami Prabhupada Ki. Hare
Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
Jai, Jai.
Right, devotees, we thank you all and we hope to see you all again tomorrow by Sri Guru's Christmas grace. And we thank you, our new visitors.